Chapter 5. Encounter with a Wizard. The moat was extremely deep and very murky. Max entered it head first, having completely lost any sense of what was up and what was down as he tumbled, with flailing arms and legs from the window. At first he panicked that he couldn't breathe, but then he remembered that he was a frog and wouldn't need air for ages, so he relaxed. He stopped sinking and started to float gently back up through the water. Not only was he not dead, he realized, but it was actually quite pleasant down here. He couldn't see very far in the greenish gloom, but there were a few very small, slippery fish swimming nearby, and not far from where he was floating, he could just make out the outline of the castle wall. Max swam up to the stone wall and considered the situation. It was vertical and very smooth. He tried pushing his feet up against it, but they just slipped and propelled him backward into the murky gloom. He swam a little further, looking for a crack between the stones. He found one that looked quite deep and promising, and stuck his front leg in, hoping to get enough of a grip to pull himself up. Ow! Something in the crack had bitten him. Max peered in and saw what looked like an angry crayfish waving its long pincers at him. He hurriedly moved on. This was getting a bit serious. He could try the other side, but that was just the same, and at the surface he'd find himself outside the castle without any prospect of crawling back in through a window to find Olivia and the antidote. Suddenly, Max heard a strange whooshing noise, and a cloud of small fish whizzed past him, swimming as if their lives depended on it. Then Max realized that it was probably because their lives did depend on it. Ripples of water followed them, and a huge, ominous, dark shape started to emerge from the gloom. Snotty's words, as he had held him out over the moat, came back to him with crystal clarity. I've heard there's a 6-foot-long pike in it. Pike, as Max knew very well, were savage hunters. Big, mean, freshwater predator fish, the river's equivalent to the giant great white shark. Big ones like this could swallow a frog in one mouthful. He dived, hoping desperately that the pike would be too interested in the shoal of fish to notice one small frog. Unfortunately, the movement caught the pike's attention, and it turned, cast around a little for the scent, and then dived after him. Uh-oh. That sounds scary for him. Olivia was boiling with rage, but she couldn't do anything about it. She appeared to be completely immobilized. She could, however, talk. "Ferocious!" she yelled. "Where are you, you good-for-nothing, useless coward? Why didn't you bite their ankles or something? Adolphus, you are the most soft-headed dragon that ever lived. Go and singe their eyebrows off." "Oh, sorry," said Adolphus, bounding up from the corner where he'd been chasing woodlice. "Did you need me?" Ferocious emerged, yawning from behind the tapestry. "Did someone call my name?" "Yes," said Olivia crossly. "Max is being chucked in the moat by Snotty Hogsbottom, and I can't move a muscle because he put a spell on me on the way out." "Ah," said Ferocious sagely. "Things not going so well then." "Ferocious, you'll have to jump in the moat and go after Max. Adolphus can't because he wouldn't fit through those windows." "And I'm afraid of heights," added Adolphus happily. "See if you can find him before the pike does. Then both of you need to find your way back here and get the antidote." "Oh, not too much to ask, then," said Ferocious, wrinkling up his nose. "Just leap into pike-infested waters, somehow extract a small orange frog, and escort him up to the 4th floor of the castle without being stepped on. Always the way, isn't it? Good old Ferocious to the rescue. Off we go again, risking life and limb. Ho-hum." Nevertheless, he scrabbled up the window and launched himself out into the air, landing in the moat a few seconds later with a loud plop. "Well," said Olivia, "let's hope he finds Max and that neither of them gets eaten by the pike. Now we just need to think of a plan to get me unstuck. I wonder. Adolphus, can you get at the green bottle with the reversal potion?" Adolphus bounded up happily and looked all around eagerly. "Oh, green bottle? Yes, I'll get it. Adolphus to the rescue. Whoopee! Potion in a bottle. Bottle, spell, can't see it. What color did you say?" But at that moment, the heavy oak door to the room creaked open, and a tall, fierce-looking man wearing a long gray cloak walked in and then stopped in surprise. "Dragon's teeth, what are you doing in my room, young lady?" Sorry," said Olivia, trying hard to sit up straighter, but not moving a muscle. I didn't realize it was your room, your worshipfulness. No, sorry, said Adolphus, equally in awe at the forbidding-looking man. The man looked at them both very hard, then sat down on a large oak chair by the door. His dark chestnut-brown hair had streaks of gray, and there were lines around his eyes, but his look was bright and fierce like a bird's. Under the cloak he was wearing dark leggings and a gray tunic, and he had a long sword attached to a plain wide leather belt. Well, he said at last, it appears that you've been enchanted, young lady, so before we do anything else, I better release you. He gestured toward her with the long, elegant fingers of his right hand, and suddenly Olivia found she could move. She stood up and curtsied gratefully, and the man nodded in acknowledgement. Now perhaps I'd better introduce myself. I am Merlin, and this is my room. Usually I lock it. I'm rather surprised you managed to get in. Did you come by yourself? No, my lord, said Olivia. Merlin didn't look anything like she had always imagined him. In fact, come to think of it, she was sure she had seen this tall, fierce-looking man before, but had always assumed he was one of the king's many knights. I came with my brother Max. We had no idea it was your room. We wanted somewhere to practice for the competition tomorrow. Ah, so your brother is a novice, said Merlin thoughtfully. And you are? Lady Olivia Pendragon, and this is Adolphus. Pleased to meet you, said Merlin to both of them. Now, if you were enchanted into immobility, I'm assuming something rather nastier happened to your brother. Well, he was a frog, said Olivia uncertainly. He was turned into a frog, said Merlin, his eyebrows shooting up. Well, not exactly, said Olivia, wriggling her hands and wondering how much to tell the wizard. She looked up at his piercing gray eyes and decided that truth was probably the best policy. He invented a spell to turn people into frogs, she said hurriedly, and we were practicing it. Then Adrian Hogsbottom came in and threw him in the moat, not realizing he was Max. Then Adrian magicked me so I couldn't go and tell on him. And please, we really need to try and find Max if he hasn't been eaten by the pike. And Ferocious is down there too. That's Max's pet rat. I really hope they're all right. To Olivia's annoyance, she found that she was on the verge of tears, and her voice had gone all high and squeaky. Adolphus licked her hand comfortingly. She took a deep breath and looked at Merlin. He was looking very thoughtful, sitting in the great chair with his chin on his hands. Interesting, he mused almost to himself, a frog spell. Of course, the Pendragons are a very magical family, all in all. Well, I shall have to meet young Max. I shall definitely have to meet him. But first, we must find him. He rose and went to the window that looked down on the gray waters of the moat. Now, he was interrupted by a loud banging on the door, which opened almost immediately. Olivia gasped and realized that the man who had burst in was the king. Arthur was tall, with dark straight hair and a worried, careworn look. He glanced at her distractedly and went straight to Merlin. Merlin, he said urgently, the prince has gone missing. We've looked through all the quarters. Sir Gareth is searching the rest of the castle now, but he just vanished. We thought he was with his mother. His mother thought he was with the nurse. It seems no one's seen him since early morning. Merlin frowned. Who knows that he's missing? Myself? Sir Gareth? You? His mother's been told he's been playing with Sir Gareth's boys, and we have to keep it that way. If it gets out, he's missing. It'll be war, said Merlin grimly. We need to keep this to ourselves. We can't raise alarm or even alert the guards. But we'll find him. He must be in the castle. I set up a spell around the walls for protection, and there's no one who could break that enchantment except... He hesitated and then shrugged. Your sister, the Lady Morgana Le Fay. When is she due? Arthur raised his eyebrows. This evening, I believe. Why? Might we need her help, do you think? Merlin laughed shortly. I hope not. I think I'll do my best to find the prince before she arrives, my lord, but we need to hurry. Arthur nodded and strode out of the room, and Merlin turned gravely to Olivia. I'm afraid you'll have to search for your brother yourself, my lady. Good luck. But I must warn you, you're not to tell anyone about what you have heard. We don't want this news to reach the wrong ears, so not a word. He gave her a stern look, then swept out of the room after the king, shutting the door behind him with a thud. Olivia stood for a moment looking thoughtful. Adolphus, she said at last, do you remember Snotty saying something about getting the brat away from the castle? Oh, maybe Snotty Hogsbottom had something to do with it. Oh, I'll have to see in the next chapter.